Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be doing a video talking about ratings that I've changed on Goodreads. About a year and a half ago to 2 years ago, I made a video all about changing ratings on books. It was a discussion talking about why I change my ratings on books, why I think that it's good to change ratings on books, all that kind of stuff, so that will be linked up in the cards. And even though that video is like over a year and a half old, I actually still think it's a really good discussion, not to toot my own horn, but toot toot. I think it's a good discussion, and going back and rewatching it, because yes, I am guilty of sometimes rewatching my videos, it inspired me to go back through my Goodreads and to see if there were any ratings that needed to be changed, and oh boy were there. So I decided to do not really a sequel to that video, but just a video talking about ratings that I've recently changed and why I've changed those ratings. I don't want to dwell on any one book too much or to get too in-depth into it, especially since I talked about a lot of my changing ratings reasonings in that first video, but I do want to run through all the books that I changed ratings on and just a brief description of why. So the first book on this list of ratings that I changed is The Forgetting by Sharon Cameron, which I changed from 10 out of 10 to 9.5 out of 10. Still 5 out of 5, but just a little minor dock. Essentially, even though I thought that this book was really, really amazing, it hasn't completely stuck with me over the past few months. I still think it was a really great book, but it didn't stick quite as much as 10 out of 10 books do, and it was a little bit cliche, which I acknowledged when I first read it, but I still loved it. Either way, I docked it half a star, not too much, but I mean, I changed the rating. Next up is another one that I read in the fall, and that is The Haunting of Hill House. I can't remember the author's name, but the picture will be right there and you will see it. And I changed that from 8 out of 10, which is 4 out of 5, to 7 out of 10, which is 3 out of 5. So that one did get a star docked. This is going to be a common theme of books on this list, but essentially my 4 and 5 star books are the ones that are like my favorites. 4 stars are obviously a little bit less so, but 4 and 5 star books are the ones that really stick with me, and this book really didn't stick with me. I liked it, I enjoyed reading it, I definitely didn't think it was a bad book by any means, but it's not one that really was that super memorable for me, and I don't think it's ever going to be showing up on any list of favorite books, and if it was like Halloween time, I might recommend it, but like at the very end of my video when I'm getting to the lesser recommendations. Another book that got lowered from 4 stars to 3 stars was Dark Matter. This one went from 8.5 to 7.5, so it's still right on that 4 out of 5 borderline, but once again, it just didn't stick with me quite as much. I definitely think that it was a really entertaining and intriguing book, but it's not one that I'm ever going to be including on any sort of favorites list or anything like that, so I didn't think it needed to have 4 out of 5. And pretty much everything that I just said about Dark Matter can be moved over and applied to The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This went from 8.5 out of 10 to 7.5 out of 10, so 4 to 3. This was a really unique story, not gonna deny that. It was really interesting, but once again, it's not one that's really stuck with me. It's never going to show up on a favorites list. I liked it, but I didn't really love it. So 3 out of 5 seems much more correct than 4 out of 5 for me. Moving into slightly more positive territory, the next one on the list is The Diviners by Libba Bray, which went from 9.5 stars out of 10 to a full 10 out of 10 because this book is phenomenal. I don't know why I didn't give it a full 10 out of 10 at first. Obviously, it's always had 5 out of 5, but why didn't this have 10 out of 10? This book is amazing. It's one of my favorite books ever. I bumped it up. It deserved it. Some books that weren't quite so lucky were volumes 4 through 6 of the Saga comic series. These originally were ranging from 8 to 8.5 out of 10, and I lowered all of them to 7.5 out of 10, which is 3 out of 5, so they were originally 4 out of 5, now they're 3 out of 5. This is a series that I really enjoy, but nothing about it so far has really blown me away, and I think that I keep getting more and more separated from the series the more and more it goes on, and I keep not getting impressed. So I like these, but I just keep feeling more and more distance from this series, and that was most apparent in these volumes. The first 3 volumes still have 4 out of 5 for me on Goodreads, but these are now down to 3. And I do have volume 7, but I haven't read it yet, so maybe that will turn around something, but I don't know. 2 more books that were lucky enough to be in the positive column are the 2 volumes of the Orange Manga Complete Collection by Ichigo Takano. Volume 1 went from 9.5 to 10, and volume 2 went from 8.5 to 9.5, so these currently both have 5 out of 5 stars from me on Goodreads, because this series is amazing. When I first read this, I absolutely loved both of the volumes, but I did like volume 2 a little bit less for some very minor reasons. But for some reason, I felt that it needed to get 4 out of 5 instead of 5 out of 5 for very, very minor things. I don't know. These deserve 5 out of 5. Maybe it's recency bias because I just watched the anime, but these are amazing. The next book on this list is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which got changed from 9.5 stars out of 10 to 9 stars out of 10. Obviously, that's not a huge change, but it did take it down from 5 stars to 4 stars. Basically, I think that I convinced myself that I absolutely love this, and while I did really like it, I gave it 9 out of 10. I don't think that it completely blew me away the way that I originally thought it did. Obviously, it is so well written, it's so intricate, so complex, it's so well done, but it's just not one that completely grabbed me and not one that I think is deserving of 5 stars. It's still really awesome, but not quite 5-star worthy. Next up are volumes 3, 4, and 6 of the Scott Pilgrim series. These are ones where I think I gave a couple of these 4 out of 5 and I gave one of them a high 3 out of 5, or maybe I gave them all 4 out of 5. Either way, I lowered all of them to 3 out of 5, 7 out of 10. This is a series that I liked, but I wasn't completely blown away by it, and I think at this point only one volume still has 4 out of 5, and that is volume 1. Next up is Wolf in White Van by John Darnielle. I read this last year, and although I enjoyed it, this was one of the books that was really easy to get rid of when I did my KonMari process, so I thought that it was just one that I overall liked, but it didn't stick with me enough to get the 8.5 out of 10 that I originally gave it. So I lowered it from 4 out of 5 to 3 out of 5, so like 7.5-ish out of 10, I don't know. It didn't deserve 4 stars, so I lowered it to 3. Next up is Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jessie Andrews. This is one that I originally gave 7 out of 10 or 3 out of 5, and I didn't think it deserved 3 out of 5. I lowered it to 2 out of 5 or like 5.5 out of 10. I don't know. I thought it deserved 2 out of 5 because I have a laundry list of problems with it, and that is usually deserving of a 2 out of 5 rating, so that's what I gave it. Next up are 2 V.E. Schwab books, both of which I gave 8.5 stars originally and have since lowered to 7.5, so they went from 4 to 3, and those books are A Darker Shade of Magic and Vicious. I enjoyed both of these books, but the more separation I get from them, the more I realize I just liked them. They're not ones that have really stuck with me too much. They're not ones that have made a huge impact. Overall, they're deserving of a 3 out of 5 rating, not a 4 out of 5 one. Next up is another one that made the change from 3 stars out of 5 to 2 stars out of 5, and that is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, which I changed from like 7 out of 10 to 5.5 out of 10. Once again, this is one where I had a laundry list of problems with it, which is indicative of a 2 out of 5 rating, so it got dropped. Next up is The Night We Said Yes by Lauren Gibaldi, which is a book that I enjoyed, but not enough to deserve the 8.5 out of 10 rating that I originally gave it, so it has been dropped from 4 out of 5 to 3 out of 5, or like 7.5 out of 10. Like with a lot of other ones that have had their ratings dropped, this one just didn't really stick with me enough to leave it at its original rating, so I dropped it down to 3 out of 5. And finally, the last 2 books on my list are positive ones, and those are books 8 and 10 in the Pendragon series, so book 8, The Pilgrims of Rain, and book 10, The Soldiers of Hala. These both originally had 9.5 stars out of 10, and they have been raised to 10 out of 10 stars, so finally, this series that I absolutely love has some 10 out of 10 star books. Basically, I was sitting around and wondering why I didn't give these books 10 out of 10, and I went back and I read both my blog post on each of these and my reviews on them, and I gave them like 9.8 out of 10, which is ridiculous. It's dumb. I did a stupid star system back in 2014, and so I just like decided to raise them up to 10 out of 10. Like 9.8 is stupid. These are 10 out of 10 books. They're amazing. I love these 2 books. They're the best books in the series, so they finally have the 10 out of 10 ratings that they deserve. So I said those two were the last ones, but then I remembered that I totally forgot to write one down, and that is Death Note Volume 1 Black Edition by Tsugumi Ohba. Originally, I gave this volume 9 out of 10 or 4 out of 5, and I wrote in my initial review, I'm not really sure why I wouldn't give this a full 5 out of 5. I don't know, I just decided not to. Like, it wasn't that wording, but it was basically that wording. And I read that and I was like, I knew this deserved 5 out of 5. Like, why didn't I give this 5 out of 5? And so I bumped it up to 5 out of 5. I think it's gonna be 9.5 out of 10, but like, honestly, this is just amazing, so whatever. Also, Volume 6 has 9.5 out of 10, and I'm not entirely sure about that either. Honestly, I want to go back and reread the series and see if my ratings change, but this one definitely changed. This at least deserves 9.5 out of 10, 5 out of 5. This series is amazing, and this is one of my favorite volumes. So there you go. Those are the ratings that I've recently gone back in my Goodreads and changed. Now, I'm sure that over the past year or so, there are definitely other books where I've changed the ratings like at random points in time, but these are the ones that I went like all in one fell swoop and went through and changed ratings on. So there's probably other books in these bookshelves somewhere where I've changed the rating and haven't like announced it in a video, but I don't know, there are just too many that I've changed over the years to really remember all at once. So if I go back through and I remember some more, or if I go back through again and just like change ratings again, I will probably do another video on that, but as of right now, these are the ones that I can remember that I've changed ratings on. Like I said, if you're interested, you should definitely go and check out my discussion video on the topic, because I went quite in depth into some ratings that I had changed then, and as well as some other reasons why I commonly change ratings. Although surprisingly, if I remember correctly, I didn't mention the factor of books sticking with me over time, so that's an interesting one that I definitely have really noticed within the past year and a half or so. That is definitely a key factor to what rating it eventually ends up with. But that is it for this video. As always, I will leave links down in the description to my blog, Twitter, and Goodreads. Please add me as a friend on Goodreads. I would love to be friends with all of you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching.